We've got two interesting testimonies before Congress that occurred, both Attorney General Garland and Christopher Wray, who then went before and then did an interview with Brett Baer. I want to start with Attorney General Garland and his questioning with Josh Hawley about the tactics around the protesters specifically. Take a listen to this, Bite 30.
Why did you send 20 to 30 SWAT-style agents and a SWAT-style team to this guy's house when everybody else had declined to prosecute and he'd offered to turn himself in?
Determinations of how to make arrests under arrest warrants are made based by the tactical operators in the district. They are not.
But you surely looked into it by this point, right? You know the answer, surely. All I know is what the FBI has said, which is that they made decisions on the ground as to what was safest and easiest.
Safest and easy. First of all, safest is always a standard in any kind of case.
And
right?
by the way, it's not safe to go up with guns drawn.
Totally. That's what I was going to say. Having 25 agents with AK-15s or whatever, AK-47s, whatever they might be, surrounding, including kids, home on a guy that's never had an arrest warrant, has never been prosecuted, and his lawyer volunteered to surrender him is outrageous. And what the scary part of Merrick Garland's whole communication right there was, well, all I know is. Remember that one. All I know is.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing is the rest of the sentence.
Personal about like these people showed up at your door like that unannounced. It was about like 2 a.m. last night. I heard like the little ding, my ring ding go off, and Amazon delivers in the middle of the night.
Yeah, which is
so
not
I assume
great.
That's likely it. But it was kind of like this random car, and it kept staying in our lot. It was a delivery ultimately, but you sit there. I sat there, waited, and the guy saw me sit and finally drove off, realizing I was a little bit nervous. Like, why is he still probably waiting for his next delivery? That again is a way less than guns drawn at that time of night. You know, when it's still dark outside and they swarm your house, because what do? Your first instinct is, I need to protect my family.
Right.
So interesting, that delivery guy yelled out really loud, this is 2 a.m., I just delivered a box. Like, don't do anything to me. And I looked down, it was a small Amazon box. I know everybody's dealing with that across the country. It is not the best way and safest way to go after somebody who wasn't prosecuted at all for such and the offense that they tried to prove. By the way, remember, let's remind everyone, they failed in their prosecution.
Oh, yeah, he was
DOJ
acquitted.
Failed.
He was acquitted.
He was acquitted because, again,
found
his
not
son
guilty.
Was cursed at, similar to how we've seen these students that we represent, cursed at and treated unbelievably poorly, and he kind of got into like a shoving match between two adult men. That's not a federal crime.
He was acquitted and found not guilty.
Protecting his son.
They went to his home when they arrested him and treated him like he was a terrorist.
Like a cartel leader.
Yes, or a drug cartel leader. Yeah. But shows you the outrage in this, folks. And by the way, that's why our Office of Government Oversight, our Office of Government Affairs, are on top of what the FBI is doing. We've got those FOIA cases involving the FBI. We're in a matching challenge, folks, at aclj.org. I want to encourage you to go to aclj.org and support our work. Let me tell you what a matching challenge means. It means any amount you donate to us, we're going to get a matching gift for. So if you donate $30, we get another $30, so it's $60. If you donate $10, we get another $10, it's $20. So these are the most important months for us at the ACLJ. Let me encourage you to go to aclj.org. That's aclj.org in order to support the work of the American Center for Law and Justice. And as I said, we're in a matching challenge campaign. If you're new to the broadcast, maybe you're watching on new to Rumble and watching us there, or on YouTube or Facebook, wherever it might be, or our radio stations, support our work. That's how we keep this broadcast on the air, too. aclj.org. That's aclj.org. More coming up. Our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, Mike Pompeo, coming up with us next. Again, support the work at aclj.org.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We are joined by our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, talking about these hearings that took place yesterday with Attorney General Garland. We also had Christopher Wray sit down with an interview with Brett Baer and talk about some of these decisions by the FBI, the politicization and weaponization of these two departments at the highest levels. And I'm going to play the sound, then we'll go right to Secretary Pompeo. But this is Senator Mike Lee questioning Merrick Garland about the all of the protest and vandalizing that went on at pro-life pregnancy centers. And ultimately they put up a $25,000 reward. Like, they couldn't find these people on their own. Take a listen to the question and the response.
In 2022 and for the first couple of months of 2023, DOJ has announced charges against 34 individuals for blocking access to or vandalizing abortion clinics. And there have been over 81 reported attacks on pregnancy centers, 130 attacks on Catholic churches since the leak of the Dobbs decision, and only 2 individuals have been charged. So how do you explain this disparity by reference to anything other than politicization of what's happening there?
The FACE Act applies equally to efforts to damage, blockade clinics, whether whether they are a pregnancy resource center or whether they are an abortion center. It applies equally in both cases, and we apply the law equally. I will say you are quite right. There are many more prosecutions with respect to the blocking of the abortion centers, but that is generally because those actions are taken with photography at the time, during the daylight, and seeing the person who did it is quite easy.
Okay, this is the federal. Mr. Secretary, you ran the CIA. This is the Attorney General of the United States saying basically we can't find the people that are violating and blowing up abortion crisis pregnancy centers around the country because it happens at night, as if there's no cameras or surveillance material. I mean, this was a pathetic performance. All he kept saying was, Mr. Secretary, all I know is, which I've concluded all he knows is not much.
It was really weak and doesn't begin to account for the discrepancy in how they're doing this enforcement. Jay, this is almost certainly the data supports that these are political decisions being made by senior leaders on how to prosecute, who to prosecute. It is not the absence of camera. It's not the time of day that these things are taking place. This is a decision being built and filtered through the bureaucracy in the Department of Justice and perhaps at the FBI as well about which cases are more important to them. And these are not pro-life people. These are folks who have supported the abortion movement for an awfully long time in their political lives and in the rest of their lives. And this is now emanating in our most sacred space, this important space where we're supposed to do equal justice under the law. I thought his performance yesterday both reflected the politicization of the Attorney General's office and was not representative of the best things that America knows need to happen. It's indecent what he said yesterday.
You know, Secretary Pompeo, when you hear this kind of just, we can't do it, it's late at night, the other response was, well, I don't really have anything to do with those FBI agents that showed up at that pro-life activist door, and I think that was the safest practice, FBI with 20 guns drawn. It seems like whoever is the next president has got a mess to clean up at the DOJ and FBI. How serious is that mess? And I think people want to see it cleaned up. They want an effective FBI and an effective DOJ to be doing the right thing, but they know it's not doing that right now, and we know how hard the bureaucracy fights back against anyone who tries to make changes.
Jordan, it'll be a death struggle because this is at the core of their capacity to wield power in ways that reflect their point of view, their political preferences. The next president's got to get after this in a serious way, not just with the most senior leadership, but rooting this out, root and branch throughout the bureaucracies inside both the FBI and the Department of Justice. Look, we know, Jordan, there's good FBI agents out there working the streets, doing good work. We know there's folks at DOJ that are just trying to prosecute even-handedly. But the folks making the decisions, and to say, gosh, I didn't know or I couldn't know, you're the Attorney General of the United States of America. Yep. That is an inadequate response to a question from a serious dissenter who was simply trying to get the facts and to have people treated equally under the law.
Yeah, especially coming in a case where when they went to trial and brought in their lead DOJ lawyer on free access to clinics entrances, so handles all the abortion prosecutions, the jury found the gentleman that was charged not guilty after he had 27 FBI agents surrounding his house the year and a half of 18 months before. It's absurd, quite frankly, and I appreciate your view on this. Let me ask you this. Chris Wray, who's been in the news a lot, he made a statement yesterday in his interview with Brett Baer that it's the FBI's position that the origin of COVID likely came from the lab in Wuhan. We've seen that also now from the Department of Energy. and some other agencies as well. The White House, on the other hand, is still resisting. And I understand it could be up for, obviously, it's a big issue and has got geopolitical ramifications. That's what I want to focus on. What is the geopolitical play on this? Because the White House, obviously, it's clear they do not want to tag this as a leak out of a lab.
Yeah, look, the facts are clear. Since March of 2020, 3 years ago now, when I said this almost certainly came from a lab. Now everyone can see it. Every intelligence agency is going to make the same conclusion that is the near certain probability. The reason they're walking away from that is because once you say that this came from the Chinese lab, you know that Xi Jinping would have known about this. We know that then the cover-up was connected to that, and that requires holding the Chinese Communist Party accountable, actually imposing real costs on them for the millions of lives lost, the billions of dollars in wealth that was destroyed. So it's a political statement for National Security Advisor Sullivan to say, hey, there's no consensus on this, is a statement that is trying to kick this can down the road, probably trying to figure out how to get through the next 2 years without having to deal with this very serious matter that we now know to be near certain. Xi Jinping knew that there was a lab leak. He covered it up and sent this virus around the world, and we all know the results of that.
So what does accountability look like? We hear that often with even the war in Ukraine. If China arms Russia with any weapons that can be used for deadly force, they're already sending over some non-deadly tactical items. But if they do that, there will be consequences. In the case of the COVID situation, what would consequences look like?
Well, goodness, there's multiple things, Jordan, and it's the right question. First, there's certainly government action that can be taken. Don't forget this lab, this Wuhan Institute of Virology is still open, still doing science and research. I pray no longer American money in there doing it, but getting that thing shut down is a governmental task. Second, there should be financial consequences for the decision makers and for the Chinese Communist Party. And I know you folks at the ACLJ, you guys have done great work on cases just like this before. I hope everyone listening understands that. I'm sure you all are thinking about a strategy to go hold accountable financially those who imposed real financial costs on Americans. This wasn't some far-off problem for us. We all lived it. We all experienced it. People lost jobs. Families were hurt. And there are remedies for that in the U.S. court systems and, frankly, in international systems as well. And then finally, I think it tells us a lot about what we've already known about international organizations. The World Health Organization failed in its single mission. Xi Jinping was able to manipulate the United Nations in a way. And we should make sure that the Chinese Communist Party pays in those places as well by kicking them out of those institutions that caused so much death and destruction about an intentional decision from Xi Jinping.
Very good. Mike Pompeo, of course, Senior Counsel for Global Affairs for the ACLJ, former Secretary of State, Director of the CIA. Mike, thanks as always. I want to reiterate what Secretary Pompeo just said, and that is your support of the ACLJ and all these issues that we just discussed in this segment are really critical. This is how we engage on these issues, and that's where your support comes. And I encourage you to go to aclj.org and stand with us in our Matching Challenge campaign. Jordan's going to lay out how that works for you, but it's really important that we hear from you.
So it's simple. What we do is we have a group of donors that are loyal to the ACLJ that come together and say, we will match the donations that come through in the month of March to ACLJ. So if you make a $50 donation right now at aclj.org, that group of donors will match that donation. So you have to take the initial action for them to, of course, for the match to occur. So it takes those of you who are listening right now to make that donation. And by the way, don't get scared away by amounts. It could be a $5 donation. And when that's matched, it's matched by another $5 donation. So it's like $10. If you were able to donate $15, that's matched by another $15 donation. So it brings in $30 to the ACLJ. Without your initial action and your donation, we don't get that matching promise. That only occurs through you taking action and donating, which you do online at aclj.org. Right on the homepage, you'll see Matching Challenge. Can't miss it. Takes a couple of minutes to donate at aclj.org. Be a part of that match. Attorney General Garland was pushed by Senator Cruz about the violence at pro-life pregnancy centers. Why aren't there people devoted to figuring out who firebombs these crisis pregnancy centers and threatens these crisis pregnancy centers. They do it under the banner of Jane's Revenge. How unified is that group? Why has the FBI not got a task force on it? Bite 27, take a listen.
Why do you send 24 agents in body armor to arrest a sidewalk counselor who happens to be pro-life, but you don't devote resources to prosecute people who are violently firebombing crisis pregnancies?
It is a priority of the department to prosecute and investigate and find the people who are doing those firebombings. They are doing it at night and in secret. And we have found one group which we did prosecute.
You found one. How many have there been? How many attacks?
There have been a lot. And if you have any information specifically as to who those people are, we would be glad. We would be glad to have that.
This is pathetic. This is the Attorney General of the United States in charge of the FBI who is saying, hey, they do these at night. What do you want us to do here? This is the guy that says, all I know is they're doing it at night, so it's hard to do it. The others do it during the day. So when and what are they doing during the day? They're handing a piece of literature to a woman seeking access to an abortion clinic. What are they doing at night? Blowing the buildings up that house pro-life crisis pregnancy centers.
And I think, he then asked Ted Cruz for information to those people. This idea, right there when he did that, you realize the Department of Justice could care less about those pro-life pregnancy centers. In fact, they would like them destroyed. I'm not saying they want people
the guy
injured.
they arrested with 27 FBI agents was acquitted by a jury because they couldn't prosecute him.
Yeah.
Now, Andy Economo, senior counsel for the ACLJ, was head of the criminal division for the U.S. Attorney's Office for Atlanta. The idea that the excuses that we can't get to these people is because it happens at night when we know the surveillance in cities is unbelievable. I mean, it's laughable, except it's serious.
Well, that is ludicrous, and it is. You want to laugh in his face, but it is very serious to say that the FBI cannot prosecute the crimes because the attacks on pro-life centers typically take place at night. What a ridiculous statement to make. I can't prosecute the crime because it occurred in the nighttime. What does that have to do? Most of these carjackings, most of these burglaries are nighttime crimes. Murders, nighttime crime. Does that mean that we do not have the capability in the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation to prosecute anybody after 7 p.m. at night because we can't tell who they are? This is silly. And it's absurd for the Attorney General of the United States to make a remark like that. And as Jordan pointed out, and I want to say this, him asking Senator Cruz, if you've got any information about where they are and what they're doing, you tell me. That's not a United States Senator's responsibility. He's not law enforcement.
How pathetic is this? This is the FBI that's supposed to be catching the terrorists.
They don't care.
No, they don't care.
They don't care. They would like the pro-life centers shut down. So if that means they get firebombed,
so be it.
So be it. Right. I mean, I'm not going to say they want people to get hurt. I think that's going too far. But if it's happening at night, no one's getting hurt, and it's just shutting down the pro-life pregnancy centers, well, those are centers of mis and disinformation. So don't they deserve it? And by the way, I guess they'll only find them if Ted Cruz can do the. Think about the resources they have. They're asking a senator for help. That's like when they put up that $25,000 reward. That's wonderful.
What a joke.
That was, we're not going to even try.
Let's play Josh Hawley, press the Attorney General as well. Let's take a listen.
You are the Attorney General. Give me your answer. Do you think that it was objectively reasonable and they followed your guidelines in sending 20 to 30 armed agents to terrorize these people? Yes or no?
The facts I have, which are those presented by the FBI, are not consistent with your description.
So you think it was reasonable?
I'm saying the facts are not as you describe.
What, that the children weren't there? That there weren't long guns there? That there weren't agents? What do you dispute? What's the factual premise you dispute?
FBI
Be specific.
Said they don't agree with your description of...
Be specific. They don't agree with what?
Of how many agents, of the agents who were there, and of what their roles were. They don't agree.
Do you know the jury in this case acquitted Mr. Houck? So I'm sure you're aware. Do you know how long it took him?
I am aware, and we respect the decision of the jury.
Do you know how long it took him?
I don't know.
1 hour.
I mean, first of all, Josh Hawley, tremendous legal skills right there. But second of all, a guy is acquitted after a federal grand jury, after he gets indicted by a federal grand jury. The case is tried by their lead Free Access to Clinic Entrances Act lawyer that handles abortion clinics. And he's acquitted, Andy, in 1 hour. I mean, that means the jury goes back. Basically, they do their...
They have to pick their foreperson. That took about 35 minutes.
Yeah, and then they said, guilty or not guilty? Not guilty. Thank you. Bye. We're done.
Exactly.
And the Attorney General's answer to this is not the way they never will give you a factual predicate for any of this. By the way, his lawyer offered to surrender him when the indictment came down.
You know, one of the big mistakes that people make in the FBI nowadays is when you offer to surrender your client. No, they want to make a big show. They want to go there with the manacles and the handcuffs and the leg irons, and they want to put these people who are pro-life in shackles and drag them to the courthouse down the middle of Peachtree Street in Atlanta, for example, bring them into the courthouse when they are the absolute most docile people in the world who do not engage in any violent activity, so that they can make a showing to the woke left that we're going to really prosecute these people and we're going to show you the power of the FBI.
You wonder why we have crime running rampant through all the country? It's because they're focused on the pro-life activists, not the actual criminals. Because if that's the FBI is afraid of that pro-life activist where they need 30 FBI, then how many FBI have to show up to arrest one cartel member?
Well, this is the problem. Yeah, but you don't even.
But they're too scared to do that because
right,
those guys fire back.
Yeah. So this is the situation. This is a government out of control. Now, here's what we do at the ACLJ, though. We don't just say, oh, this is terrible. Oh, this is bad. We file maybe a Freedom of Information request and find out what the heck was the charging decision here. How did this all happen? Who was getting these emails from these people? Who was making the decisions on the FBI field office makes these determinations in accordance with protocol? What does that protocol actually say in your Department of Justice FBI manual, which is supposed to be the way this is done? This one blames it on the field agent. This one blames it on the manual. We give equal justice. We treat everybody the same. We just can't find the people that blow up the abortion pro-life center. Sorry about that. Can't find them. They're not out here. Can't find them, but everybody else we can. This shows you the absurd nature of this, but this is where the ACLJ comes in. When we go to court, whether it's on a Freedom of Information Act request or whether it is in federal court defending life, you're getting us there. And that's one of the things I want to talk about, because in talking about getting us there, we had one of our lawyers yesterday in Maryland defending life on a Maryland legislation that is so broad. It's another one of these perinatal situations, which is abortion up to the time of delivery. Take a listen and take a look if you're watching on our social media.
If Maryland wants to add this extreme bill to its constitution, I urge you not to do it under the guise that this goes back to Roe or that Dobbs made this necessary. This has nothing to do with Roe. This is so far beyond Roe. I heard at the committee last week before the House testimony that this would actually allow late-term abortion up to birth of a healthy baby. And they weren't open to an amendment. It's not tied to viability at all. This is not going back to Roe, and we respectfully request that you report this bill unfavorably. Thank you.
Jordan, talk about when we do those hearings, what we're trying to do is to predicate to court action.
Yes, and it's also to make sure that the legislators there are exposed, those who are on the payroll of Planned Parenthood through their campaign donations and doing Planned Parenthood's bidding, that what they are selling to the people is not, in fact, what they are voting on in the legislature. They are not just trying to codify Roe. They are going way past Roe and allowing, as been said, abortion up till birth, and that there's no viability standard. That was Roe. There's no viability standard at abortion at 9 months. The child's viable. The child's viable at 8. And we know through technology it can be viable much earlier than that through other procedures. But this is the abortion distortion on display. We make sure that it's noted that they know exactly what they're voting for is infanticide, nothing more, nothing less. And that, again, we did defeat this the last time through. It's a little tougher this time in Maryland because you've got a Democrat governor. Yeah. We had a moderate Republican governor who was not pro-life but was against late-term abortion, so it didn't move that time. So now they're trying once again. And again, we don't give up in these kind of states like Maryland. People would honestly, I think, kind of say, well, I can't believe you're even fighting it out in Maryland. I just want to remind you, we beat them the first time out, so you've got to go back.
At the ACLJ, we are front and center on all of this, on the life issue. And I want to encourage you to take time today to stand with us right now at aclj.org. And the reason I'm saying that is we're in a March is a big matching challenge month for us. And your support at aclj.org makes a huge difference. So let me encourage you to go to aclj.org, support our work, which not only keeps this broadcast on the air. If you're listening to us right now, that's how you're or watching us, keeps the broadcast on the air, but also keeps us in court to fight for life.
That's right. So the matching challenge for the month of March, it's very simple. If you donate $25, we have a group of donors that are going to match every donation that comes through the month of March. So if you donate $25 right now today at aclj.org, that triggers a matching $25 donation. So what does that mean? Effectively, because of your $25 donation, the ACLJ receives a total of $50. So again, and that's, we are a nonprofit tax-exempt organization. So we get that entire $50 to utilize for our work. Again, the numbers go up and down. So if you can't give as much as you usually give, it's still a very important time to give because it adds up. The $10 donations that, again, become 20, the 25s that become 50, the 50s that become 100. Donate today. Be part of our matching challenge at aclj.org.